evening and thank you for joining us. With the new 325-bed Thunder Bay Correctional Complex still years away, the Ford government has announced a pair of expansion projects in the Northwest to help alleviate chronic jail overcrowding. One will happen here at the current Thunder Bay Correctional Centre on Highway 61, the other at the Kenora Jail. The government is still light on details, but it says the structures will be complete by the spring of 2022. Ryan Bonazzo reports.
As Thunder Bay continues to wait on the new 325-bed correctional complex that was promised by the Ford government in the spring of 2019,
a new, modern correctional complex in Thunder Bay.
The province announced an interim plan to help address overcrowding at jails here in the Northwest. The government says it will build new structures with both cells and cultural programming space at the Thunder Bay Correctional Centre and the Kenora Jail. Minister Greg Rickford spoke to the media on behalf of Solicitor General Sylvia Jones.
There is a pressing and substantial need for some relief.
The expansions are set to be finished in the spring of 2022, but it's unclear how much relief it will bring. The government can't yet say for sure how much capacity will be added, though Rickford did say he believes up to 50 single cells could come to Kenora alone.
Those numbers right now are not really clear to us because we've got to make an extensive engagement with people who work at the facility, Indigenous leadership.
We've been waiting a long time for a little bit of help here.
Bill Hayes is the local union president representing guards at the Thunder Bay District Jail. As of Tuesday afternoon, there are 143 inmates inside. The building officially has capacity for 149, but Hayes says space needed to accommodate COVID-19 protection measures means the jail right now should only hold about 100.
We have people living in interview booths, visiting area, and A&D all over the place again. So we're in rough shape. I said we need help now. We can't wait till 2022, although this is really positive news. We need something in the meantime.
The facility also needs more staff. Hayes says at least 35 additional guards are needed to adequately run the jail. Rickford insists his government is working on it.
So the Northern Correctional Officer Recruitment Program is something that we're just putting the contours to now, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to focus on a more local recruitment strategy rather than depending on transfers and which sometimes can be temporary and fairly regularly never permanent.
The government also announced that a request for proposal to build the brand new correctional complex is expected to be released in early 2021. Ryan Bonazzo, TBT News.
Ontario Opposition Leader Andrea Horwath undertook what she called a virtual tour of Thunder Bay's health system today, meeting online with health officials and union leaders to tout the NDP's sweeping new plan to overhaul Ontario's long-term care system. If elected in 2022, Horwath is promising to gradually increase investment to fix what her party calls a broken system, topping out at more than $12 billion annually by 2028. That's $3 billion more than the province currently spends on long-term care. About $750 million of that would go towards ending private for-profit care. Expensive, but Horwath says it's worth it.
For too many years, I've watched the tragedy. I've watched the horrifying discoveries that family members have shared with me in terms of the conditions that their loved ones have been found in long-term care. I've heard the stories of people who, were expecting, the home care worker to come to show up to provide really important supports and care for family members, and then just not show up.
The NDP also plans to clear home wait lists by adding 50,000 new spaces, mainly in small care homes, and by offering personal support workers a $5 an hour wage increase. Ontario continues to see a sharp increase in its coronavirus numbers, with over 1,500 new cases reported over the past 2 days, and that's leading to heightened concerns over conditions in the province's long-term care facilities. Colin DeMello has more.
Just days after moving large swaths of the province back into a modified Stage 2, Premier Doug Ford says further restrictions are not under consideration.
So I'm just praying we don't have to expand this and everyone just keep following the protocols and let's get these numbers down.
While the government shut down indoor dining and closed gyms and convention spaces in the 3 problematic areas of the province, infectious disease specialists say the impact of those decisions won't be felt for another 2 weeks.
It just takes time for any of those changes to have a measurable effect, and that's because of the incubation period of the virus.
But the latest numbers come despite a series of new measures that were intended to curb the virus's spread so far. On September 17th, social gatherings were lowered to a max of 10 indoors and 25 outdoors. 1 week later, on September 25th, last call for alcohol in Peel, Toronto, and Ottawa was moved to 11 p.m. Bars and restaurants had to close at midnight, and strip clubs were forced to close as well. Then, on October 2nd, the province placed capacity limits on restaurants, gyms, and meeting spaces. But the numbers today are still high. Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health says without those measures, the case rate could have been even higher.
Our modeling suggested if we went on the track we were going back a week ago, we would be now around 12 to 1,500 cases a day. We're not seeing that, fortunately, so that trend may be a good sign.
In the meantime, the province's immediate attention is now turning to Ontario's long-term care homes, which have been experiencing an increase in resident cases and death amid a chronic shortage in staff.
We're hearing that from some of the folks on the front lines that in fact the staffing issue is worse now than it was at the beginning of COVID-19.
The situation in some long-term care homes has become so unmanageable that the Red Cross will be called in to assist.
Working out the logistics with the federal government, there's certain long-term care homes that are needed and are in need more than others.
It's a sign that things are worsening during the projected peak of the second wave.
More than a week after 2 COVID-19 outbreaks were declared in Kenora, the Northwestern Health Unit has issued some good news today, saying the number of active cases in that city is down to just 1. The first outbreak was declared at Valley View Elementary School, followed by a second at Birchwood Terrace Seniors Home. In total, there were 10 active cases reported in the Kenora area, but as of today, nearly all of them are resolved with no new cases in 10 days. Medical Officer of Health Dr. Kit Young-Moon says it's hard to determine where the Kenora residents were exposed to the virus, but she believes public health measures might have contributed to stopping the spread in their community.
So things such as the physical distancing, good hand hygiene, wearing masks in enclosed enclosed public spaces may be helpful in reducing the transmission of COVID-19. Some of the cases were children, and children are generally known to be poor transmitters. So it's really hard to say exactly why this has not passed on to other individuals.
Young-Hoon says due to the difficulty in determining those exposure locations, any suggestion of implementing a bubble for Northern Ontario isn't being discussed or imposed at this time. However, she is recommending residents avoid non-essential travel outside of the region. There is growing concern over the future of ambulance bases along the North Shore. On a recent Zoom conference call with consulting firms, several area mayors discovered a proposal to close and merge some EMS stations. As Adam Riley reports, those proposals are receiving mixed reviews.
Red Rock Mayor Gary Nelson says his community is often left without an ambulance due to patient transfers from the Nippic and Red Rock area to Thunder Bay, which sometimes is extended beyond the 2-hour travel time.
And then while they're in Thunder Bay, they could get a call because the ambulances in Thunder Bay are all busy, so they could be put out on a call up there. But we don't know when this ambulance is going to be back in Red Rock.
Red Rock has a single base station and is supplemented by the nearby Nippigan base. However, Nelson says that puts the residents of his community at risk due to the limited road access to Red Rock that includes one rail crossing. But he is open to the proposal heard during a Zoom consultation call with the firm Performance Concepts Consulting and Superior North EMS to build a new base on the highway between the two communities.
We can't have both ambulances situated in Nippigan Hospital. Not with the elderly people we have here in Red Rock and the 2 schools and the buses that are coming in that highway all the time and across the railroad tracks. We need an ambulance close by. So halfway between Nippigan and Red Rock, I think would be great. Red Rock has the property for them. We will give them the property if that's what they need.
The situation is similar further east on the North Shore. Terrace Bay Mayor Jody Davis says, like the Nippigan Red Rock area, both the station in Scriber and Terrace Bay are proposed to be closed, with a new base being built between the communities, a proposal he is approaching with some skepticism.
That's quite a reduction in services and coverage. They're at this time saying that the service will stay the same, but just have one building. Well, the proof will be in the pudding and how they're going to do that.
Davis adds there were some other service changes mentioned during the consultation that left him a bit taken aback, but he wasn't overly surprised by the proposals.
One that is really hard to handle is the closing of the station at Beardmore, considering the distances that the people will have to travel now to get an ambulance and delay in time.
TBT News reached out to Superior North EMS for a copy of the presentation that was broadcast during the consultation, but received no response. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Thunder Bay woman has confessed her guilt in connection with the beating death of another woman on a county fair walking trail last year. 33-year-old Ashley Potson was originally charged with second-degree murder, but today she pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter. In March of 2019, Potson and her boyfriend, 30-year-old Patrick Menson, were consuming drugs and alcohol along with 37-year-old Tanya Andy. Now, according to the agreed statement of fact read in court today, Andy began accusing Potson of theft, which led to an altercation. Potson admits she struck Andy several times before Menson intervened. The couple then left the scene. Andy later died of blunt force trauma to the head. Potson will be back in court December 9th to set a date for sentencing. Menson, meantime, has been granted bail. He'll appear in court on that same date to deal with his own manslaughter charge. Updated statistics from Thunder Bay tourism officials show that the city had a sizable increase in hotel occupancy during the month of August, despite ongoing travel restrictions. Tourism in Thunder Bay took a big hit due to the pandemic, but that prompted local teams to get creative. Campaigns were pitched to Manitoba and partnerships with Destination Ontario were launched. As the in-province travel increased, tourism officials also made sure their messaging did not go against the advisories from the health unit. Tourism manager Paul Pepe says local hotel occupancy has been far higher than the national average at nearly 50% in July, and that number jumped by 20 percentage points in the month of August.
What was pleasantly surprising in an otherwise very concerning year was that our August occupancy in Thunder Bay was about 68.7%. And while that's still a lot lower than normal, normally we're 80 to 82%, we were still one of the highest markets in Canada. The Ontario average was only 42%, the Canadian average was 35%.
Pepe says his team has created a plan for the winter months to ensure the tourism sector is steady as travel restrictions increase again. And as the holiday season approaches, he's encouraging city residents to stay and to shop local. The water dumping bucket has been a main attraction at the North End Splash Pad since it opened in 2017. But now the city says that bucket is going to be removed. Some residents living near the splash pad have been complaining about the noise level from kids enjoying the big splash, and they're finally getting their wish. Troy Charles has that story.
Ever since its grand opening in 2017, the North End Splash Pad and its giant dumping water bucket has been a huge hit with local kids. But it seems that will also be the bucket's downfall. The splash pad is adjacent to some homes, and after 3 years of noise complaints from some surrounding residents, the city has decided the water bucket will be removed before the next splash pad season. Last summer, the city even erected a living wall with a $20,000 price tag to try and muffle the noise from the playing children, but as manager of Parks Corey Halverson explains, it wasn't enough to save the bucket.
We worked with the local residents over the last couple of years, getting information, looking at potential options to improve sort of the sound levels and some privacy impacts that they were experiencing. So this is where we're ended up, is that in order to resolve those impacts, we're looking at replacing the bucket with a different feature. It'll still be a water feature, but it'll be less impactful from a excitement standpoint. When you have a large bucket of water dumping, it does create a different reaction than when you have a typical neighborhood splash pad feature.
This news does not sit well with Barb Kuko. She's the former president of the North End Community Center, and she, along with some parents, have been vocal online about their displeasure with this decision.
I'm absolutely shocked and I'm so disappointed because this is a park. It's meant for the children, and for the very few months that the children have to actually play here, I don't get it. And I know there's a couple of people across the street there that are just across the street, and they sit outside and watch the kids playing and listen to them. And to them, it's great because they're having fun. That's what a park's all about.
Halverson says they received no new noise complaints this summer. That's likely due to the fact that the drop bucket and slide remained fenced in due to COVID restrictions. As for a new home for the bucket, he says possible new splash pads at either Boulevard Lake or Chapels Park could be a good fit for the bucket down the road. Troy Charles, TBT News.
October is Women's History Month, and to mark the occasion, the city has announced 4 new inductees being profiled in their Women's History online exhibit. The exhibit is a celebration of the contributions of notable women to Thunder Bay's history. In a video released today, City Councillors Kristen Oliver, Rebecca Johnson, and Shelby Chung took turns introducing the 4 women. This year's inductees include the late Elizabeth Dougal, co-owner of Dougal Media, who passed away last year. The late Catherine Dugmore, a city waterfront project manager. The late Margaret Ruth Page, a longtime leader in nursing and public health. And Canadian Military Lieutenant Colonel Darla Oja. Oja reflected on what it means to receive the recognition.
Women who have provided the foundation that built this city and continues to. I would not be here today if it were not for the women who came before me, their contributions, the movement forward, and their degrees of change. It has been very humbling as I have read the past recipients' biographies and as I've reflected on how I have contributed to Canada as a whole and my community of Thunder Bay.
Now, to learn more about each of these women's many contributions to our city, visit Thunder Bay website to search for Women's History Month. That city will be adding more women to the exhibit every October.
Well, Fiona, safe to say Mother Nature had a mixed bag of tricks today, weather-wise.
She likes to keep us on our toes this time.